So a full hybrid meeting, huh?
Good. We'll call the meeting to order. I'll take quick attendance. Karen Herrick. Karen here? No? Carla Nazaro.
Here.
Ed Ross. Here. Greg Stepler. Here. Nancy Toomey.
Here.
John Coote.
Yeah.
Kirk McCormick.
Here.
And Pat Tompkins is here. Did I get everybody? Oh, and Sarah McLaughlin is not here as well. Sarah texted me, she didn't think she was going to be able to make it. Okay, so also we can get started. The first item on the agenda is the review of the prior minutes. Everyone should have had a chance to review. If anyone has any comments on the minutes? You want to take a minute to read through them if you didn't have a chance to ahead of time? If anyone wants to make a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Vote. Carla Nazaro,
Yes.
Ed Ross. Abstain. John Coote.
Aye.
Kirk McCormick.
Aye.
Nancy Toomey.
Yes.
Greg Stepler.
Aye.
And Pat Tompkins, aye. I think that's everyone.
Aye side, that's the yes side. Guys have it.
The aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Okay, so the next item on the minutes is the update on the Killam School process. Fidel, if you can just give us an update.
Absolutely.
Where we're at.
Thank you very much. And I know on the call, we also have Dale, who helped us, or has been helping us in this process, and also Allison Jenkins, who is our procurement officer. And in the room today, we've got Joe Huggins, Director of Facilities, and Kevin Cabusi as well, the Assistant Director. So I think you all saw that we were voted into the feasibility study process. The next step into that process is selecting an OPM, an owner's project manager. Jackie, if you can pull up that schedule that I emailed you, that'd be great. So what I wanted to do essentially is this is going to be some heavy lifting from the committee, and I just wanted to put these dates in front of the committee so that we're all ready for them, and hopefully as we get into the agenda item of next meeting dates, we could target some of those dates. So we sent a draft RFS, a request for services, that you all probably saw. That draft has been submitted to the MSBA, and our contact at the MSBA has told us that she will get us feedback next week in terms of the language. Allison is preparing to receive that feedback, and the goal is to have that RFS advertised in the Central Register on April 5th. And it also requires advertisement in the Daily Times Chronicle, which Allison takes care of. What that means is that the responders will have roughly 4 weeks to submit their packets. We're hoping that we received a substantial amount of packets for review. There are two critical dates, I guess, in the process. One is typically we have an informational meeting where we answer questions, offer details about the project, and potentially a site tour. Tom and I will coordinate on that with Sarah, our principal. And then any responders that have questions have to send those questions to Allison in writing, and the last day to get questions is April 25th. That means that on May 3rd at 2 p.m. Responses are due, and what Allison is requesting 9 written packets, nine hard printed packets that we will distribute to essentially the nine voting members of the committee. And inside the RFS, there is criteria that was pre-populated by the MSBA, but they pretty much share that is the standard in terms of scoring of how we score respondents. I think it would be appropriate for the 9 members of the committee to get those packets, review those, grade them, and then we have a meeting where just like this, we review those scores in open session, and I suggested May 15th. Obviously, that's a date that we can talk about. And then we are from the MSBA, we are required to go down from as many people to response down to 3, right? So if let's say we have 6 respondents, then through the grading process we will select the top 3, and then we would hold interviews with the top 3 to create basically a ranking of 1, 2, and 3 at that point. And then I envision, and this is a suggestion for the committee, for that interview to happen with a subcommittee of the 9, ideally 4, so if a quorum is not required. And staff obviously will be there as well, like Allison, Joe, myself, and we will develop then a recommendation of that ranking 1, 2, 3 that we could come back to the committee with and vote to formally adopt said list of respondents. And then if the school committee, Caleb School Building Committee agrees, then Allison, Joe, and myself would move to essentially negotiate a contract with the OPM. We are required to submit that selection to the MSBA for their review and approval by June 14th. And the MSBA would formally vote on it on July 10th at their MSBA OPM review panel. And at that point, once they vote, then the process is formalized. Before I open it up for questions, just Dale's on the line. Dale, did I miss anything or anything else you want to add?
No, I think that summarizes it very well, those dates, and that works with their board meetings and so on. Yes.
Okay. Any questions?
So working back from, are we fine working back from June 14th? Do you think, kind of, that seems to be the main date. Do you think everything that you've kind of got spelled out here works well to get to June 14th, or is there any places where you might need, kind of more or less time?
I think I think we wanted to give the committee a full 2 weeks to receive the packets and review them at your own time. I think if the committee can review those packets and bring those gradings, if we can narrow it down to 3 respondents on our meeting on the 15th, then I think it's an interview that we'll have probably on Zoom to create that ranking of 1, 2, 3, and I think the critical thing is going to be for the committee to review, I don't know how many submissions we're going to get, but to then be able to narrow it down to 3.
Actually, I'm sorry, Fidel. There's a couple dates that I think this has got to be a blended of things. We actually had the responses due on the 3rd is correct. Short list by May 25th. Not May 15th.
Yeah, and Pat asked that as well. So Dale, they said that their OPM meeting is on July 10th and not July 24th. So that kind of we had to squeeze everything accordingly.
Okay. Well, because my concern would be that if you develop your short list by May 15th, you're not going to be able to get not all the OPMs would be available 2 days later to do interviews, I don't think.
That could be a challenge. One of the things we could do is we could publish that information
Yes.
during the
Yep.
RFS, the RFQ process,
Yes.
so that they know to hold that date open. If they're selected. It is pretty tight, May 15th to May 17th. In the May 3rd out to, just to respond a little bit to Ed's comments, the May 3rd, coming out to like May 22nd, that is a pretty compressed time frame. It's going to take a lot of work by this committee, and specifically the subcommittee, the OPM subcommittee. But I think that the May 23rd date out to June 14, there's a little bit of flexibility there. It's maybe a 3-week spread. So if we start to run behind, this doesn't need to be carved in stone. So I think it provides a little flexibility, but I'd rather push the dates, kind of front end load them. And if we're feeling like we're just too squeezed here, we need another week to make this decision. I think the schedule has that flexibility. So I think it works. But there will be a lot of work for this committee, and it'll kind of hit in May. So anything we can do for people to prepare ourselves, I think would be helpful.
Okay.
Allison, it may be helpful also for your subcommittee looking at ranking the OPMs to have an odd number. Maybe you should have 5 members versus 9 members, but so that you don't run into ties with your deadline so tight.
It's a good point. It's a good point for sure.
Yeah, well, we have obviously there's 9 voting members, and then you presented the concept, which I think makes sense, to have a subcommittee that does the actual interviews, and we'll come back to the full committee with a recommendation for the OPM. I don't know that I guess that committee could get deadlocked 2-2, but that feels like it might be more of a scoring process after the interviews. And if we go to 5 from 4, you have a quorum, which can make that subcommittee's flexibility a little bit challenging.
Are we all scoring and then the subcommittee's just doing the interviews? Just that clarity.
Yeah, I think the way Fidel laid it out, correct me if I'm wrong, all 9 voting members would score all the respondents. And that should lead to a top 3. And I don't know if 3 is a magic number. I think it has to be 3.
Mhm.
I think we have to interview at least 3. But if we had a clear break between 4 and 5, I think we could, we'd move that to interview 4.
Mhm.
If it starts getting deeper than 4, I think it's getting to be too many interviews personally. And then the subcommittee would do the interviewing and effectively come back to the full committee with a recommendation of those three shortlisted respondents, where the committee would vote. I would assume that most likely the committee would follow the subcommittee's recommendation, but there'd be an opportunity for discussion.
Even if the subcommittee were deadlocked 2 and 2, that's still a recommendation. I mean, that's still something that
Yeah.
the full committee could take into account. So I don't think the number 4 is of any problem.
That's a great point.
Fidel, is after the responses, which is April 25th, who would prepare the responses? Do we get involved in any way in the responses, or should we get involved in any of the responses?
So responses are you asking responses to questions from the OPM?
From the OPM, yes.
It's a good question. I mean, I think
Do we
it
need?
depends on the question, right? I
I
mean,
know it depends on the questions. There's nothing in here which says we should be available to meet between April 25th, May 3rd and May 15th. No, sorry, April 25th and May 3rd.
Typically, it's Allison Jenkins again. Typically, what happens is I will tell them to send all the respondents to me. And actually, any respondents that reach out to any of you, if they find out who any of you are, should not be responding to them. They send it all into one central place, and that way we submit the same answers out to everybody at the same time, as a matter of fairness. If there's one that we can't answer for the town and it's more of a committee decision, then I would shoot it out to the committee and to get
That
feedback.
was my concern. There may be something in there which the committee might want to respond to rather than the town. But there's no opportunity here for us to get involved in the responses, and I'm wondering if that should be corrected.
I think, not only for that reason, but I think a meeting in April, just for the committee to be prepared for what's gonna come in May, I think is necessary anyway. So we could have a meeting. One of the things I think we need to come out of this with is where we need to meet. I'm assuming the 15th is a meeting.
Mhm.
That's a proposed meeting date. Just want to take a quick look at my calendar here. Yeah, that's a Monday. So just looking at the calendar, the last two Mondays in April are the 17th and the 24th. Which the 17th would be the day before the informational meeting. The 24th would be the day before the last day for questions. So there's a good chance that we would have any questions if we did it on the 24th. But I kind of feel like maybe meeting on the 17th makes sense. Because we're gonna have a few things that we need to do. Some of the things that we need to do is decide formally, we want to set up a subcommittee. We need to decide who's on that subcommittee.
yeah, and
And we probably need to talk a little bit about how we, the 9 of us, score the respondents when we get them. Give everyone a chance to read through the RFS that goes out, that'll go out on the 5th. So we have an understanding. So that might be a suggestion for us to have meetings on April 17th and then May 15th. That makes sense to everyone?
April 17th is vacation, just as an FYI.
Okay.
Waitress Day.
Oh, so so staff's not working. That's the only downside with that.
Is that a bad day? Obviously, staff's not working.
That is the math.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we should definitely do it on the 17th then. He'll be fine.
We can move that to the 24th.
Yeah, let's do the 20th.
Do- do-
24th
think
is-
That's better.
24th is town meeting.
Town meeting
so
day.
Have to do it early.
Okay,
Yep. Town meeting's at 7:30. That's doable.
You want to do it the 24th before town meeting?
What is, can you clarify exactly what that meeting will be about?
One thing we would do at that meeting, I think, is we would select that subcommittee. Assuming we don't select that subcommittee tonight. In my mind, it would be good to let people think about that a little bit before we select that subcommittee. I think that'll give everyone a chance to go through the RFS, the request for services. In the request for services, I had a chance to review it. It breaks down the different qualifications that they need to submit on, and it breaks down how we're gonna weight those. For example, the OPMs, the way it's drafted right now, the OPM's experience with similar projects is weighted for 30% of their total score. So it'll give us a chance to discuss that stuff and get a gauge for how we're going to score. Everyone will go off individually and create their own score, but at least give an opportunity to read the RFS and talk about that if someone has a question about, how to score it and what to consider, what not to consider. And obviously we rely heavily on Allison to give us guidance there. So I think that's the two main things on that meeting. And that's an availability. If there's a question, we have to weigh in on.
I wonder why that meeting would not be after May 3rd rather than before May 3rd.
Well, we're already meeting on the 15th of May. And we need to meet, I think we need to meet before May 15th.
Yes, but I was suggesting after May 3rd, or, May 3rd is just the date when the responses are due. We're not meeting, but seems to me we should meet after responses go out rather than before.
With the responses due, that's the
Packets. That's
The
from,
packets.
that's from the OPMs, not from us. Responses due is from the respective OPMs.
That's our proposals are due. Maybe it's a
Think of it as bid opening.
bid opening.
Okay, all right. So you're saying this is, okay.
Bid opening is a better term.
Right, so the conversation earlier was about whether April 17th or May 24th, I'm sorry, April 24th was a better meeting day for us to have in April based on the fact that we may have some questions or some other business relative to the responses that we could.
Yes,
I kind of feel like we need to meet in April, give everyone a chance from this meeting until then to get up, read through the RFS, digest some of the information that we're getting today. And then we can meet. And at that meeting, we would plan to elect a subcommittee or assign a subcommittee. We are electing them, exactly what we're doing. But, create a subcommittee and just prepare ourselves for how we're going to score, how we're going to score the.
okay.
All right. So we'll use those as the next meeting dates, April 24th, May 15th. Does anyone else have any questions on the schedule and the process? One thing I will just mention, so the owner's project manager they're gonna guide us through the whole process. Working with MSBA, they're gonna guide us through the selection of our architect. They're gonna be instrumental in helping us evaluate the architects. We can switch OPMs if we get through design and we wanted to, but more likely we're gonna stay with the same OPM. So they're gonna be, close confidant advisor for, 4 years. So it's an important, obviously it's an important decision. It's important for us to find someone that not only has all the technical skills we need, but we all feel comfortable, we can trust and work with. So it's a big decision. All the firms that'll submit are qualified. They've probably all done this before, so it's nothing new to them. But just an important decision for us to make. And May is going to be busy for us. Like two takeaways. Anything else on the schedule?
One footnote I would add, you are required by the process to shortlist 3 firms. But I just mentioned, since you have such a limited time there, you're not necessarily required to interview 3 firms. So we should confirm that with MSBA, I guess, before you get to that point. But where you're going to have such a limited time, you may have a clear 1 or 2 preferred that you can simply interview, rather than going through 3 interviews. You may choose to do that, but you're going to have very limited time to do that. So.
Okay. Adele, one question. I had said earlier that I I think that we need to shortlist 3, but we could shortlist and interview more. That's correct, right? I don't think
That's
you-
correct. You need to rank at least 3. You can do more, but you
Okay.
do not have to necessarily interview all 3 on your short list. You could choose 1 or 2, and then if the negotiations don't work, then interview the 3rd one later.
I was thinking of a date on your schedule might be helpful instead of meeting on the 24th, if you met on April 26th or April 25th. Because then we could have any and all questions and the committee could answer those questions. And then I could send out the responses the following day to all of the people submitting proposals.
That's a great point. And we will be kind of bumping up against the town meeting. I know there's a lot of town meeting members here and it will make for a long night.
24th and the 27th probably of that week, but the 23rd,
How about the 26th, the Wednesday?
especially I think an earlier time doesn't conflict with school committee or select board meetings usually, or these other meetings.
Yep.
Maybe I think the council on aging meets at 6, but most start later.
Okay. So tentatively say April 26th
Like it.
for that first meeting, Wednesday, April 26th at 6, and then Monday, May 15th at 6. For the next 2 meetings.
What I was gonna say is, if for some reason we don't hit, you know, these dates, we can always ask the MSBA to come to their next OPM meeting, be it at the end of July or even August. So we don't put the project in jeopardy, you know, if we fall behind a little bit because of whatever reason.
Okay.
And just to clarify, I'm just reading it now, but when you short rank the 3 finalists, I think the MSBA asked you to interview all 3.
I know that's sort of the typical, but you know, again, I'm not sure that it's 100% required, so it might be something we want to check. Again, I would only brought it up because you're so limited on time if you're trying to do the 15th
Oh, no.
to the 17th.
I totally
Yeah.
agree with you. I just don't want to bump up against them, and their directions say the 3 shortlisted respondents should be invited for a presentation and an interview by the owner.
Hmm.
You're absolutely correct. It is not must.
I think I'm gonna guess more likely than not, we're gonna wanna meet with the 3 low, the three high, whatever you wanna call them. The three highest ranked, top ranking firms. So I don't think that'll be an issue either way.
Yeah, and I envision that those interviews to happen on Zoom, right, and have a, you know, they get 45 minutes for a presentation, a Q&A after that. So very efficient interviews.
Right.
Are you
Carla?
defaulting to Zoom meetings?
I think for the interviews, I would, just because of travel, you know, and needs of scheduling for respondents and committee members as well. I would.
And if it's possible to do in person, it's so much, I think it's so much better.
So we did offer, going through the town manager office, we were prepared to offer a hybrid because we did have people from across the country. So, I mean, I would offer it at least, just in case they're trying to.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I like in person better.
Yeah. We can definitely, I could go either way with it. I don't think we have to do either, right? We can do either one.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things we're gonna want is probably gonna want standardized questions for those interviews and stuff. So that might be something that we want to tackle at our next meeting.
Okay.
Or maybe that's an interim meeting of the subcommittee to develop those questions. But some of the things we're gonna wanna be prepared for going into May.
Yeah.
Tyler?
That would probably be a good thing for the subcommittee,
Yeah.
because you don't want that in public,
Yep,
right?
yeah, that makes sense. So anyone else have any other comments or questions on the schedule? Or the process in general? Fidel, does everyone on the committee have a copy of the draft? So one thing that the draft, I think you said at the beginning of your presentation that the draft request for services has been sent to the MSBA for their approval.
That is correct.
That needs to go to the MSBA for their approval. Does everybody have that?
Yes,
Okay.
everyone should have received it. If
Yep.
you didn't get it,
Yep.
please let me know, but everyone should have got it.
Attached to the email of March 15th, I think.
So,
And once I get feedback from the MSBA, we'll share it again.
okay. And if anyone has any comments on that, what should they send that directly to you?
They should send it to me. Yep, absolutely.
Anything else on the process or the schedule?
No, I appreciate you laying this out all the way out through August. That's super
Yeah.
helpful. Thank you.
No, it's great that Fidel did that.
It was Pat's idea, just wanted to.
Okay, well,
I didn't do it though. There's no execution coming out of this corner.
If,
I-
if I could add a foot,
Go right ahead, Dale.
the desire of MSBA is when you make that submission to them after you've selected it, their preference is to receive, not only the selection, but a contract that's been negotiated and signed by the OPM, not yet signed by the town. So they want to know that's all queued up. So right now, as that schedule shows it has one day for, selection and the next day negotiating a contract. So that doesn't leave very much opportunity in there, both on fee and scope of services. So whether you can accomplish that, I think I'd be very prepared for it. And, that's going to be a big challenge. It might be that if you do the selection process earlier and so on, some of that can happen,
Yeah, there is the next day, the item for negotiate, but then the final selection submitted to MSBA is 3 weeks later on June 14. And then the MSBA OPM panel review meeting is July 10th. Now, in order to be on the agenda for that meeting, do we need to get them something by June 14?
We do.
So that's a hard date.
That's a hard date.
There's no flexibility on the June 14 date.
right?
In order for us to submit it later, then they'll push us back to another meeting,
We default to the next meeting.
Okay.
which they kind of shared. If for some reason we miss the deadline, that's okay. It'll just keep they'll just keep
Yeah.
put us on the next one after that.
Your point's well taken, Dale, but I don't think we can push it up any faster. I think we're already crunching it pretty tight.
No, I absolutely agree. I'm just saying in terms of your own preparation, to kind of know where you want to draw a line in the sand, et cetera, because that's going to be really tight.
And I was just
Karen?
getting back to your point earlier, we could just let them know, here's our schedule, so they know.
Yeah.
So they're ready. We're moving quickly, we're on a deadline and
Do we know what the next meeting with the OPM review panel is after July 10th?
I did not ask that question, but I can. I'll ask that question.
August 15th, I believe.
And Fidel, who will be negotiating on behalf of us?
Town council and myself. I mean, I think once we pick, and obviously Allison will be involved in that process as well, and Joe Huggins as well.
Okay.
Actually,
That's tough.
the MSBA website has after July 10th, the next one is August 7th.
That's not that far away. That's not bad.
Yeah.
Right.
There's another date here, May 22nd. So we're meeting the 15th and the 22nd. Because that's when we vote as a committee on the selected respondent, correct? So that you can then negotiate with them on the 23rd. So we should get that onto our calendars.
Yes, Yeah, you're right. Good point.
A lot of meetings.
Yeah, May's gonna be a busy month.
And just to be clear, the whole committee will be allowed to participate in the interviews, even if, just to observe, if we,
Yeah. I think once we have more than 4 members, I mean, if it becomes then a public meeting, I'm not sure. I'm not sure at that point.
Yeah, we'll have to, that's a good question.
I
Maybe
remember in
something
the
we can-
library, when we brought in our owner's project manager, the whole committee was there, but it's a different grant program, so.
Yeah. So, I don't know the answer to that question off the
And
top
then
of
you
my
get
head.
a real sense, if they do show up in person, you get a real sense of
Yeah,
who they are and how easy they are to gonna be worked with.
but it will, once one person shows up, it'll throw it into a quorum and we'll have to advertise it publicly, which I don't know that
So,
that's.
I mean, I don't know if that's the worst thing. It's gonna be like during a workday. I'm gonna go back to your process. Once we got to the finalists, well, that's another thought. Once we got to the finalists, it wasn't so secret and it didn't have to be like a closed session, so. I see. So, all right, well, I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
It's hard to get a sense of how folks are just from our FS submissions.
Yeah. I think we're gonna be relying heavily on the 4 people on the subcommittee to make that recommendation of those 3, which one, the
Okay.
ranking of those 3, so. So maybe we can sort of table that and make a final decision on that next month. With that as a,
We think, you would also think that the composition of the subcommittee is going to take into account people that could be available during the day to actually be present for those interviews. So sort of by default, you're defining the subcommittee by people with availability.
yep,
And that in some respects is going to preclude us having a quorum and all likelihood.
yeah,
And even if you didn't care about the quorum, scheduling 9 people. Or, anything over 4 is gonna be a challenge on top of that, and you're already trying to work up against time too, so it's other things to consider.
yeah. Yeah, well, I think, Karen's suggestion, it would be optional for the other 5. Certainly, if we had to schedule around that, it would definitely be a challenge. And that is a good point. The 4 people that are on, something to consider, the 4 people that are on the subcommittee, at least one day will have to take a day off work.
So I was just
Karen?
thinking, going through the library process, so it was over at the library in a room, and I know not everyone was there, and it was definitely open to the whole committee, and it wasn't a Zoom day, it wasn't like broadcast, so it's not like people aren't attending, it's a relatively small group.
Yeah.
But their submissions, it was a public submission process, so what are we trying to protect? Although I do believe at that time that the questions were just asked by a few people and everybody else was just kind of observing.
I think what we did, I'm trying to remember, do you remember at all what we did? We got the submissions.
Right.
We ranked them.
Yep.
As a subcommittee,
Right, shortlisted.
shortlisted them, then we interviewed them. And then we brought it back to the committee, and after that, it's fuzzy, so it was a while ago.
Yep.
But once we had the OPM, then the process started, and then you get the architect and that was
I didn't rank them, but I went and watched at least 2 of them. I don't remember.
the interviews.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's try this for a process. All 9 are going to rank all the respondents. Next month, when we meet, we should be prepared to try to figure out who the 4 people on that subcommittee are.
Mhm.
And it might be that the other 5 people on that subcommittee just will not have availability to be present that day, and we really don't need to worry about it. And if someone that's not on that subcommittee really wants to be there, we can cross that bridge at that point. That make sense?
Will we know the range of dates?
I mean, right now,
Interview, so could that be fungible as far as when the dates are, so we just so that people can kind of take it back and if they are taking a day?
yeah, so, yeah, it's an excellent point. So Wednesday, the 17th is the day laid out for it now. And so everyone, and that's the one day when we're gonna interview, right? It's the 17th. We're gonna interview. If you're on that subcommittee,
That's the day, okay.
you're,
Okay.
and if you do it Zoom, you can manage it at work. But that's definitely gonna be like a day commitment. And if we think, that you're a perfect person for that committee and you're like, I can only do that on this date, we should all be prepared to kind of manage those dates. It's an excellent point. That definitely has some movement.
And I think to your point earlier, if that date goes out with the RFS, then at least the potential, the applicants at least can also start planning for that day as opposed to hearing about it just a couple days beforehand.
All right.
This is Allison. I just had a few questions. One, is the entire committee going to the April 18th? Or is that strictly staff, or who's attending the walkthrough?
Yeah,
Excellent question.
great question. I think that should be strictly staff, mostly Mr. Huggins and the principal, right? But if I guess, let me know if you're interested in joining.
I would agree. that it's- Yeah, I would agree it should be staff. It does give you a chance to meet some of the respondents. That can cut both ways, I guess.
And I would also suggest any meetings that you post, you just post them all for a quorum and try and do as many as you can that people can view later. It's gonna take a lot of support from the town. I would want it out in front of them as soon as possible, but even if it's just the four of you, but you're meeting to discuss the OPM, I would post all of those meetings.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So subcommittees are always challenging. So we're talking about 4 because it's less than a total quorum. Does it need to be a subcommittee? Or could we just say a working group? Could we just have like a working group? I mean, that's like a much looser and it's not a quorum. And you're not talking, I think I heard you say you're not planning on taking any votes, but it's like a working quorum to get some work done to ready to present back to the full committee.
Well, you're gonna shortlist you want to shortlist who they are. So
Okay,
you're definitely taking a vote, but
Okay.
it's just, I think if residents were listening right now, it wouldn't bring a lot of, I think the more you can be in front of them, the better off.
Well, I think the full committee is reviewing the responses and scoring. It's really the smaller group that's just conducting the interviews and coming back with the recommendation.
To rank those
And
three.
then
in
it'll be the
order.
full board voting again based on the smaller group's interview and recommendations. So it's just trying to make that interview group a little more manageable and flexible in terms
Okay.
of,
I had it backwards. I was actually thinking the subcommittee would the ranking. I mean,
No, we're all gonna rank individually. So there should be 9 rankings and we'll probably average those 9 rankings.
Second scores. Yep. Yeah, and we'll include the all responses, submission on your meeting, right, on May 15th, and it'll be in a packet ahead of the meeting, so it'll be a public record available to everybody.
What is the problem, if any, of having that meeting for a public meeting? Is there a problem with having it? I mean, it seems to me that in interest of transparency, we should be to invite the public as much as we can. Eventually, they've got to vote on this school.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure why we would do things in a meeting which they are not invited to. Is there a downside, I'm asking?
No,
The downside is if it inhibits the people who are bidding, right? So if we are, as a subcommittee, going to decide what the questions are, right, that shouldn't be a public meeting because we don't want to give the information out early unless we do. So that to me would be the only reason to not have it in public. But I agree with you, it should always be in public when it can be.
yeah.
It's inhibiting
Right.
negotiations.
Right. It's an excellent point.
Yeah.
If the working group, I don't know if there's a technical difference between a subcommittee and a working group, but if the working group wants to develop questions ahead of the interview, so they're prepared, they want to prepare for the interview,
Yeah.
you don't really want that as a public. But, maybe posting the interviews, regardless of whether or not we have a quorum, as a public meeting, maybe that does make sense. we may be doing it, it may be over Zoom. I kind of lean towards in person as well. Just, you always feel better interviewing someone face to face than over Zoom. I've hired plenty of people doing both. But maybe that's where we end up. It sounds like that might be the way the committee's leaning right now. And we can finalize. I'm thinking there's a lot to digest. I always like to give everyone the opportunity to digest this stuff, go away, think about it, let it rattle around in your brain a little bit. And then when we meet next month, we can kind of finalize these things. It sounds like that would make sense, having that interview process be public.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't see any downside because some of the other comments notwithstanding, I don't see any downside of, we don't have to, like I said, it doesn't have to be like broadcast over RCTV, but why shouldn't it be transparent? These are just folks are just coming in to do their presentation. And, but I completely agree with you about maybe the questions beforehand, that gets done in a quiet group. Okay, yep, I can digest.
Anyone else, any questions or comments on the process or the schedule? Everyone has the RFS, and we're gonna have our next meeting, which I think we decided was April 26th.
6 p.m.
We'll probably have to make a bunch of decisions at that meeting. All these things that we discussed. And as far as comments on the RFS, do you have a hard or soft deadline when you would need comments if we have any? Obviously, it's going out.
It's going out. Yeah.
5th, so.
I said yesterday. No, I think Allison, if it's going to go on the central register, I think we'd like comments as soon as possible. I'll say that on April 5th. Yeah.
Knowing that it's going out on the street April 5th, any within the next week would give you and Allison time to incorporate any comments if needed. There is always the possibility after April 5th of an addenda.
Sure.
So it's not like it's a hard end date, but anyone has any comments, we could try and get them, say, by next week. I'll give you a week and the weekend. Most important.
So Jess.
I could say that because I already reviewed it. I just need to hit send on the email to give Fidel my comments.
Although keep in mind, MSBA is maybe going to come back with some comments, and they're going to want to see what you might be editing, whether it's now or by addendum. So it's pretty timely.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna just piggyback off Dale's comment that whatever changes we want to make, we need to get approved by the MSBA as well.
Yeah. Okay.
I have one comment. Reading is in Middlesex County. You have it in Essex County. The
And the
article says Essex County.
That's one change.
You can adjust Chat GPT algorithm.
Okay, does anyone else? I think we covered everything on the agenda. I actually moved as I look at the agenda, it looks like I moved the approval of the prior minutes from the last item to the first.
That's good. Fisher.
So unless anyone else has anything else or any new business to bring up, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Karen,
Yes.
Carla,
Aye.
Ed, aye. Nancy,
Aye.
Kirk, aye. John,
Yes.
Greg.
Aye.
Pat, aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.
I just
Right.
raise our hands, like
I
it
know.
doesn't matter.
I-
Start.